All right. So, and just like I was saying earlier, understand the difference between the serpent, great Leviathan, the dragon. Understand all the differences. Especially considering ancient Kemetic culture. You know, but but in the Bible, in Revelation chapter 12, let's go to Revelation chapter 12. Because I say it's interesting how the snake actually grows. The serpent grows from the serpent to the dragon in Revelations. You know what I'm saying? Now, Revelations chapter 12, verse 5. You know, Revelation chapter 12 very awesome symbolism anyway. It has very awesome symbolism anyway. But verse 5 in chapter 12 talks about how this dragon even caused the flood. How this dragon even caused the flood. I apologize. Verse 15. I'm sorry. I had 5, but it's verse 15. Verse 15 talks about how it made the flood after the woman, and it caused her to be carried away by the flood. You know, very interesting. And Jesus calls himself the morning star. Jesus calls himself the morning star, but Lucifer is the son of the morning. You know what I'm saying? And this is once again how you have the get behind me Satan, the good law guiding the negative law. You know what I'm saying? Instead of it being the whole, backwards and other way around. You know. But understanding that, Jesus calls himself the morning star, and I believe that's what verse is that? Isaiah 14 verse 12, it says, "O Lucifer, son of the morning," "O Lucifer, son of the morning." But then in Job 38:7, it says, "When all the morning stars sang together, all the sons of God shout for joy." Just connecting these things, that Jesus is the morning star and Lucifer is the son of the morning. In Revelations 2, let's go to Revelations chapter 2 verse 28, because you're gonna have another. "And now, little children, abide in him, that he now appears, we may have confidence and not be shamed before him at his coming." No. I'm so sorry. I was reading John. Good Lord. I'm so sorry. Revelations 2, verse 28. "And I will give him the morning." And these are Jesus. Oh Lord. See, and these are Jesus's words. Just to confirm what I was saying about Jesus calling himself the morning star. These are the red letters. Verse 28 in Revelations 2, verse 28. "And I will give him the morning star." You see? He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. What the Spirit says to the churches. So it's almost like Christ wasn't even in church. What the Spirit says to the churches. You know what I'm saying? This also brings into question the difference between the church and the temple. The body, because the body is the first temple. So the church and the temple. It now sets in that question. How much of a difference? What is the difference? But verse 28, "And I will give him the morning star. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the church." Yeah, man. Yeah. Now Revelations 22. Let's connect this with Revelations 22. Verse 16. Some more red letters. "I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify you these things in the churches. I am the ruler of the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star." There you go. Jesus says right at the end of Revelations, once again, the bright and morning star. You know. And Lucifer is the son of the morning. And this is so interesting. So interesting. So interesting. Yes. I have sent my representative, my angel, to testify to you on these things in the churches. I am the root of the offspring of David. I am the bright and morning star. I sent my angel, my representative. I sent my vessel, to testify to you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, the bright and the morning star. Wow. To testify to you these things in the churches. That's deep. So this is more evidence that Jesus necessarily wasn't even in the church, but he knows what's going on in the church. I testify to you these things in the churches, and also, just like I was saying, it brings to you the question, the difference between the church and the temple, And just as I was saying, the symbolism. Let's go back to Revelations chapter 12. The symbolism in Revelations chapter 12. A woman clothed with the sun, with the sun. It says with the sun, with the moon under her feet, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. You know what I'm saying? Just the symbolism there. The sun, the moon, 12 stars, 12 horoscopes, 12 months, 12 disciples, kindergarten through 12th grade, 12 hours of day, 12 hours of night, just so many instances of 12, so many instances of 12, It said, then being with a child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another side appeared in the heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and drew them to the earth. This is awesome symbolism. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. She bore a child male who was ruled. She bore a male child. She bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, a scepter, and her child was caught up with God in His throne. And her child was caught up to God in His throne, meaning he was the heir. Her child was the heir to God in His throne. Was caught up to God in His throne. This is very awesome symbolism. The tail drawing the third of the stars from heaven. Lucifer taking, Lucifer falling out of heaven with a third of the angels, and they're calling them stars as well. Calling them stars as well. A third of the stars of the heaven and threw them to the earth. Very interesting. Very interesting. And the scepter shall never depart from Judah. The scepter shall never depart from Judah. She bore a male child who rules the nation with a rod of iron, the scepter. Basically the scepter. And her child was caught up to God in His throne. And God said the scepter shall never depart from Judah. And her child was caught up to God in His throne, the heir of the throne. Yes. Ashe. And as I was saying earlier, to understand the difference between, understanding what who Lucifer was, Lucifer just being a character, Lucifer ultimately being the ultimate essence of African peoples. You know what I'm saying? And it goes back to what I said when I was talking about how they fear what they don't understand, and they're trying to make you fear. They're trying to make you fear your own science, and it goes back to what King Leopold was saying. Surround their ancient science with ominous language, and discourage them from anything that would give them the courage to affront us. You know what I'm saying? And this is what you have in the devil, because everything that you are afraid of, everything that you think is voodoo, everything that you think is evil, satanic, that is your ultimate advanced science. That is our ultimate advanced science. And just by characteristics of the devil and all these things that they have in here about, women don't wear your hair like this, don't wear gold in this, just totally, depicts who we were in in ancient times before we ever came to before we ever were enslaved by anybody, and it really brings you to the whole remember the time theme, like in Michael Jackson videos where you show black people as kings and queens, and when you say this thing about Satan, when you first introduce Satan, and you say Satan was the king of music, and Satan was the angel of music. He was the most beautiful angel, and how he wore all these jewels. It sounds very much like an ancient African man now. When you understand ancient African history, it sounds like black people back in the day told point blank period. You know, people would call Big Mama Satan. And it's so crazy. And this was the beginning of making us hate ourselves. This was the beginning. The total beginning. You know, when America has done nothing but promote death and destruction. Just when you look at the military alone, just the simple fact that we have a base everywhere that we've been to war, that lets you know that our children are never coming home. You understand? That lets you know that war is a business. And this has nothing to do with, diplomatic, anything diplomatic or none of that. It's all about investing and taking over and invading other people's shit. Like I say, just the simple fact that we have a base everywhere in America that we've been, everywhere in the world we've been to war, shows you that our children are never coming home. Shows you our babies are never coming home. So, understanding Lucifer, look up the word Lucifer, look up lucid, because, to be lucid is to be, smart, intelligent, quick on your feet, whatever, things like that. Look up the word lucidity, and Lucifer and see what you get. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Now let's turn to Ezekiel 37. Ezekiel 37 in the Valley of Dry Bones. It's the Valley of Dry Bones. Ezekiel 37 in the Valley of Dry Bones. Now, in the Valley of Dry Bones, when you read this chapter, especially from about verse 1 to about verse 13, 14, especially to verse 10 and 11. Verse 10 and 11 are the keys. So I prophesied as he commanded me. And breath came into them, and they lived and stood upon their feet, an exceedingly great army. Then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the house of Israel. They indeed say, our bones are dry, our hope is lost, and we ourselves are cut off. This is when you have this breath of life, and when you go to verse 8, but there was no breath in them, and the skin covered them over, the skin covered them over, but there was no breath in them, the breath of life. And when you go back to Adam, when he was first being created, and God giving him the breath of life, as I was saying earlier, the breath of life, of speaking truth, honesty, love, just productive conversation, things like that. This is the breath of life. This is the breath of life. And when we live this way, and we speak with honesty, truth, and realness, and the real, we create an exceedingly great army. We create an exceedingly great army, even more vast than anything we could imagine. Because that is the house of Israel. And we live truth with each other. That is the house of Israel. Amen.